Hey Jesse, check out my new shirt. I got it for $10. I will post the link at the bottom of the video. So all proceeds go to the Little Rose Shelter in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, and they are a shelter for girls who have been victim to sex trafficking. So that is my entire point of making this video today, is I'm explaining my anthropology midterm with you. So this will be fun. You get to experience my college experience as I do this. Alright. So, to understand why sex trafficking is more prevalent in Vietnam than in other countries, we need to understand the history of Vietnam. So, as far as resources goes, Vietnam is a very fertile area. They established agriculture at the same time as Mesopotamia. So, they have had the ability to develop. However, their issue comes in with government. So they have not had an opportunity to experience a lot of self-government. First, they were under Chinese rule for over 1,000 years, most recently in the 1400s. In the 1800s, as part of the scramble for Africa and imperialism, French made Indochina, and so that was part of their colonization. And they were a colony of the French until 1945, after World War II. It was also the same time that they had a famine. So this famine is important because it's their first major, well, on record, their first major population decrease and labor shortage. So, I have no cards. Hey, look at that. I have no cards this time. Alright, so I got all this information off the historychannel.com and Wikipedia and localhistories.org. But, so after their first major labor shortage, they experienced the Vietnam War in the 70s, which lasted 8 years for Vietnam. So Vietnam is a long shape and it's kind of coastal. So the top is bordering China and then the bottom is bordering the ocean. So that's where you have all the influence from other countries such as France who are capitalist and influence the culture through the southern border. So communist versus capitalist, you know the story if you are American or in the world at all, especially because it's such recent history. The point is the communists won, so that means at least 50% of the government, or of the people, is unhappy with the government. So there's your first issue. The second issue with the government, aside from not being experienced as far as self-government, is poverty. So they're very hands-off, partially because of their culture. They value privacy and reputation and establishing yourself, and your family life is your own personal issue, and the government should not get involved in that. So that means the government is very hands-off as far as social issues and as far as economic issues. So one of the reasons there is poverty in Vietnam is because of the government's resistance to establishing agricultural prices and setting those prices. So in history, alright, not currently, which I will get back to, but it cost more money for the farmers to make the food than what they got for selling it back. So they weren't getting a lot of profit. So everybody moved to the city. So that means overpopulation in cities, which means it's high unemployment, hard to get a job when you have so much competition. So obviously it's kind of difficult to solve these issues within the government. So the Little Rose Shelter mainly seeks to educate women. Here's why. Alright, the other reason that the government is hands-off, not only with financial matters, but with also social matters. So as far as sex trafficking goes, they kind of believe that, that's your own private business and the government shouldn't be involved. So traditional Vietnamese culture is Buddhist and Confucianist in there's a word. All right, they're Buddhists and Confucianists. That's all you need to know. All right. But with globalization, that's kind of dying down. So there are two reasons women are receiving more independence. First, globalization. Second, poverty. So traditionally, the status of the man is they not only are the leaders of the household, but also not only with rules, but also with finances. But when you're in that much poverty, you need the women to work. So the women are going to work, and the children are either left unattended or the children are also going to work. And what are children going to do? If their mothers and fathers can't even get jobs, what kind of job are they going to get? Well, that's where sex trafficking comes in. All right, let's see what I forgot here. Reputation is huge in Vietnam. So this is a Vietnamese proverb, which I will attempt to read to you. Hold on. After death, a tiger leaves behind his skin, a man his reputation. So for women and children to go into an industry that's so undignifying and dishonorable in their culture is very detrimental to their psyche. So that is another thing that the Little Rose Shelter does address, is they offer psychological help for that. So with sex trafficking, the highest risk are young girls because this independence is so new to them. Nobody's taught women or children how to be wary of men in society, or really anyone. I probably shouldn't say men, but there's a video below that talks more about the culture and this growing independence of women, and they don't really know what to do with it. So pause here, watch that. All right, welcome back. Let's see. So, note cards all over the place. All right. The Little Rose Shelter mostly serves girls from ages 12 to 18. These are girls who are extremely impoverished and have resorted either to prostitution, or they've been tricked into labor where they didn't know it was sex labor, but they were sold into it and now they're stuck. So what the men do who participate in human trafficking is they'll convince the women and children that they need them. So they'll make the women dependent on them and say, well, I could have killed you, or I'm feeding you, so really your life is better off with me here. So that is why women don't leave, or don't always leave. Also, what are they going to do if they left? Like, this is detrimental to their reputation. What are they going to do? They can't tell anybody because it's so undignifying, and there's so much stigma surrounding sex trafficking that they'll just be judged by their peers for getting into this kind of work. So that's another thing that the Little Rose Shelter does, is as part of their mission statement, which is Little Rose aims to provide for the care of, education, and career paths of their young girls. So they have this entire diagram of support. Rehabilitation, so that's physical health, psychological help, and awareness raising. So that's what I'm talking about now, is the stigma, reducing the stigma, and also encouraging people in the community to seek help and realize that it's not their fault that they've had to get into sex trafficking in order to support their family. They also provide education, so they teach women and children how to be independent with this kind of new thing in the culture. And also they help, I shouldn't say women and children, I guess, because they're 12 to 18, so just children, because they focus on child sex trafficking. Anyway, so they do slowly integrate the girls into their own local schools and help them go back to school, but then they offer supplemental education, or if they're not ready to go back to school, they offer education, and life skills classes, and job training, and life coaching, and recreation. They make little crafts and they make connections with each other and with other people in other shelters around Vietnam, to build connections. So if after their time in the shelter is up, which is usually after about 2 years, if they need additional help, or if they're finding themselves in a place where they could become victim to sex trafficking again, they can get that help. And family community integration. So the Little Rose Shelter is very culturally sensitive, partially because they're run by Vietnamese people. But they do encourage family life and allow family visitation and slowly integrate these girls back into building up their family and supporting their family, as well as supporting themselves. So the Little Rose Shelter teaches responsibility as far as household chores, or as far as selling crafts to raise money for the shelter, or spreading awareness to raise money, or just having the older girls teach the younger girls has helped them a lot. And I also want to talk about the psyche of someone who has been victim to sex trafficking. So they could be forced into this through rape, or tricked into labor where they said it was something like making clothing, but then it ended up being something else. Or really anything. It's an international industry, so you could be sold in Vietnam and be working in Malaysia or other countries around there. And there's a lot of trauma, obviously. So post-traumatic stress disorder, which and depression, and bodily trauma. So that is actually the only statistic I have as far as this presentation, because numbers are stupid and I'm not a math major, and it doesn't matter how many people are affected. If you need to help, then they still, I don't know. I hate statistics. But the one I have is that the average lifespan of someone living in a sex trafficking area is, the average lifespan of someone in a sex trafficking situation is 3 to 7 years because of depression and suicide, or drug abuse, or STDs, or yes. So it's very important to get these girls out of the situation and keep them out of the situation. So they do offer legal services, post-shelter support, basic needs. That's another part of their diagram of support. I'm going to post the link to the Facebook page and their normal page, I guess, so you can access it if you don't have Facebook, as well as the video is down there and the t-shirt. So I got the t-shirt for $10. You can too until November 15th. Then it goes up to $15, but that's still pretty good for a t-shirt, especially for such a good cause. So if you have any questions, I still need to work on my presentation, obviously. However, this is my second take, and I did manage to cut it down by 10 minutes, so there's a lot less ums in here, and it's good. Ask me questions. I will respond. Jesse, I will see you whenever you have a cool idea that you feel like sharing with me.